Hi and welcome to GMI, the Guitar and Music Institute podcast, episode number 34. My name is Jed Brocky and today I'm talking to Andy Squires, otherwise known as TercelVoice. Just over a year ago, I bumped into Andy when I was on holiday. We started chatting and it turned out that he was a singer-songwriter who was on the verge of releasing an album. At that time, the GMI podcast was running a series of podcasts aimed at musicians who were trying to move from the physical world onto the online world. So now that we're just over a year later, I thought it would be a good idea to go back and talk to Andy and find out exactly how his campaign with his new recording went. And I've got to say, if you are thinking about releasing an album but you're not so sure, then please listen to this podcast. As always, by just listening to this podcast, you can go to the gmiguitarshop.com and receive 15% off our large range of guitar-related products. All you have to do is, when you get to the checkout, add this code, capital G, capital M, capital I, 01. If you go over to the Guitar Music Institute website at www.guitarmusicinstitute.com, you'll find links to our shop directly from there, as well as the code. So, coming up now is my interview with Andy Squires, otherwise known as TercelVoice. Well, Andy, I hope you like that big build-up on the intro. It's been over a year since we've spoken. We did say 9 months, but I'm sorry about that. How are you?
I'm really good, Jed. I'm really good. Really glad to be back and chatting to you about stuff in the album and how's it gone and all that.
Well, I'm incredibly excited about this interview because you were part of our Musicians Moving Online. Try saying that when you're drunk. And it was just so fortuitous that I met you, and from there found out you were releasing an album, and it was at the part of the whole endeavour or project where you hadn't really quite started out, and you are now going to tell us, and all the listeners around the world, exactly what's happened in just over a year. So you go under the moniker TercelVoice. So I'm going to shut up and I'm going to let you do some chatting all about it, and I'll pop in occasionally with some daft questions. How does that sound?
Sounds good, yeah. Sounds great.
The album, tell us about the lead up to it and just take it from there and let's see what happens.
So the last time we spoke, I think I was just at the start of releasing it. I think I'd got a release date out, etc. So I'd got a few gigs and stuff like that planned for the release. A little bit of a local buzz going on, things like that. Obviously, I'd got the album, which had taken sort of a year and a half to put together. So it's kind of like it doesn't really. Nothing like that really exists until you sort of present it to the world, and then suddenly, hey, it's here, but yet it's taken X amount of years to sort of put together, and actually, from conception to, actually getting your stuff together so you can actually go to the studio and record it, and then making that happen and writing songs and saying, I'm going to do an album, and then etc. So there's lots of different elements to the album, as far as I can see. Because first of all, it's like, for me, it was a massive deal just doing the album, to say to myself, because I've always been in various different bands playing with other people, and for me to actually do a solo album with my sort of, with my soul on the line, as it were, was a huge deal for me, just to even finish the album. Like we said in the other interview, once you've done that, you kind of, you've climbed that sort of little hill, and then you think, well, I can go a little bit further and climb a different hill, which is let's put it together and let's actually make a product for this, so we can present it to the world. We can give it a name, which is what I did with the name TercelVoice. I just kind of wanted to do something a little bit ambiguous with that and have some freedom. And I'll come on to that a bit later with the name, because I've had a bit of an idea of what I want that to be now, and I wouldn't have had that if I hadn't have done the album. So it's kind of like it's chasing its tail a little bit. But so I released the album, and it was brilliant. I did a few gigs sort of around the north where I put on nights, and I had a few sort of people playing before me, and then I played.
So sorry, and just for our listeners, when you say the north, you mean around the north of England?
York, Leeds, that kind of Manchester kind of area.
And in the lead up to that, you didn't just release the album, did you? You would have done some PR or promotional work before that?
Yeah, totally. So what I did, I contacted a PR company about maybe a month and a half before I actually released the album, got some prices and stuff like that, and they were like, okay, well, it's going to be this much money, and we need this much time. And they actually wanted a little bit more time. They wanted 3 months to do a campaign. And I guess, in a way that was kind of, that's fair enough. And that's the right amount of time to do it. So that's probably, in hindsight, maybe something that I could have worked on. But they sent me a list of the people that they were going to contact. And it was kind of like, it was all online. And none of it was major print or anything like that, or national papers. It was just literally just online, like bloggers and stuff like that. So, and it was like £600 a month for the 3 months campaign. So I thought about it and I thought, well, hang on a minute. I want to release the album. I want to just get it out there. And I contacted people independently of the company and just introduced myself. Said, could I send you some stuff to be reviewed, etc. And they said, yeah. So I think it was like 4 people out of 10 that they'd sent on the list said that they would do it. So I sent them the stuff myself. And yeah, I got like 3 reviews prior to the release. I got like I think it was like 4 or 5 websites that put it on their like new coming out releases things sites with a review. And I was like, well, this is pretty cool. I've done that myself. That's good. So I did that. And then I have a connection with BBC Introducing anyway. So they got involved as well. And they were like helping me out. They said that this album's come out. They had me in for a session just after the release. So I did a BBC Introducing session in York with Jericho Keys. And I played 3 tracks off the album and then a cover as well. So that was brilliant. That was a lot of exposure that that I'd sort of mustered myself without getting crazy and getting sort of spending a lot of money. And
that must be one of the biggest problems, isn't it, for new bands, getting into a lot of debt, because these PR companies, they can charge the earth, can't they?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you really want to do something and you really, you put a strategy together and that's fine. It's money either well spent or not. But the way I looked at it, I thought, well, I'm paying them £600 a month to them to send it to someone who might not like it or might not want to do it or might just not have time. I thought, well, I'll just send it myself. And so I started looking at like different places where you can sort of submit things. And I came across a website called submithub.com. So you pay a credit, and I think it's like £1 for a credit, and you get like a few free credits sometimes, things like that. And you upload your tracks and a little blurb about yourself, and you send it directly to online bloggers and like music reviewers and stuff like that. Yeah, so I did that, and I got loads of rejections. So I was just like, okay, that's fine. Not everyone's going to be, my music's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And then I got one from a website called Indie Folk Central. They've got a massive following on YouTube. And so they said, well, we really want to put one of your tracks, Angel, on our YouTube playlist for December, which is when my album was released. It was like 2 weeks after my album came out. And it went on there. In that month, it got 248,000 views.
Wow.
Which was just like, and I paid £1.
Oh, you paid that much?
I know.
They always say that Yorkshiremen are tight, aren't they?
I couldn't believe it. So light bulbs were going off for me at that point, and I thought, well, this is brilliant. So I did it again, and I got another website that's put it on theirs, and that was 7,000 views. And then Mr. Otter Music put it on his, and that got 83,000 views.
Wow. Now, can I just ask you the big question in my mind, and maybe in some of the people who are listening in, especially those who are singer-songwriters. That's a lot of listens. Has it had any material effect on sales, do you think?
Those months that it was on there, my Spotify monthly listeners went through the roof for that month. It's weird because that particular track's had over like thousands of views, but the other tracks on the album haven't. So it's kind of weird that you've got one track that people are like, oh, I love this, but they're kind of not following through onto the other tracks, which was a bit weird for me because I was looking at the stats for Spotify, and that's kind of not really sort of correlating a little bit, which was. Can
I just say that when I through GMI release a series of videos, you always find the first video in the series gets by far the highest amount, and then you can't understand why they don't then go on to the second video or the third. Granted, not everyone that watches something that I put out would want to go on to the second one, but it is surprising how quickly they fall off.
Yeah, I don't know if that's just to do with people's attention spans, or I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe. But if it's me, I mean, I sort of I like to sort of meander down that path of if I discover an artist, I'd like to sort of see what else they've done. And, and if it backs up what my first initial reaction was, then I'm like, oh, wow, that's really cool. And I'll follow that through with a purchase, or at least, I'll be listening to them.
So you're getting 250,000 views. You must have at some point inside your noggin thought, I might have cracked it here.
Well, it's kind of weird because I've listened to music over and over and over and over again and not purchased anything. But then again, I did purchase a record. There's a band called Roy Rogers I think they're from Portland. And the guy who mastered my album mastered their album, and that's how I heard them. And it took me about 7 months to buy their record. And one night I was kind of just on the internet, I thought, I'll just buy it. And it ended up costing me like $40 because I had to pay the import tax. But I got it, and I was absolutely blown away with it because I got it on vinyl, and it was amazing, and I'm really glad I did that. And so to answer your question, not really. It didn't really do anything to the sales of online sales. And I did lots of Facebook campaigns, and I paid for lots of Facebook ads around the time of the release, and I made some really cool videos.
Well, that's interesting. Tell us about that, the whole Facebook thing.
So like I really like it because it's just really user friendly, and it's kind of like you pick your budget of how much you want to spend, and you get instant feedback about where your audience and how they're engaging, and if they're clicking on links and stuff like that. I made some videos myself on just on iMovie, on my computer, because I made videos with Final Cut a few years ago, but then I lost it on my computer, so I started using iMovie.
Okay.
And I just love it. It's so easy. So I made these cool promos, and I got this kind of like these images coming through, and I got a bit of my tunes, and I put a few reviews on it, and it looked brilliant. It looked really good. I thought, this is wicked. I've not spent anything. This is ace. And so I put them on Facebook, and I did a little bit. I set aside, I think it was like 150 quid as a budget for some ads and stuff.
So, sorry, before you go on, what were you expecting for that? What did you want from that £150?
Just awareness. I didn't think it would turn into anything. I didn't think I'd get that back in sales. That wasn't my initial kind of, intention. It was purely just to sort of get awareness around a product that was coming out, and a new musical act, basically. Because I'm totally aware that before I released or did the album, nobody knew no one, because TercelVoice did not exist until I did the album. So I did the album, and then then I started gigging it. Really, it wasn't like I gigged it, and it was like, oh, do an album, man.
No one's smashing your door down, yeah.
Please, I was quite aware of that. So it was just basically just awareness, really, of the name and of the music, really. That's all I wanted. So I was quite happy to sort of throw that money in there and
That's
say...
about $220, $230.
Yeah, something like that. I thought, why not? Let's see how this Facebook ads work, and it was great. I got lots of feedback, and people. I made a really cool thing at the end of the video, which is if you go onto a website called Smart URL, I think it's .com or .org or something, and you basically, when if you've got all the URLs for all the places where your album can be bought, you can put them all together on one of those cool click link things. So like I was watching those videos that were coming out before my album came out, and they all had this really cool thing at the end, and I was like, how did they get one of them? I want one of them, because at the end of the video it's like it says Spotify, iTunes, iMusic, and so basically, yeah, I made one. It was free, and I just put it at the end of the video. It was brilliant.
That's fantastic advice, Andy.
So, like, if you watch like really, really professional, all these videos that were coming out before mine, I was looking at them going, how did they get that? Where did they get that from? And I found it, and it was free.
How did you find it?
I think Smart URL, which is the thing that just ties everything together. So it's just like a really neat shopping sort of page. So it's got all the things on it. They have a little banner at the bottom of these videos, these music videos. And I was just like, sweet. I'll just click on and see what's going on there. And yeah, I made one. It looks cool.
No, just to tie a few things together, because you just threw in as an aside that you were on Spotify. I also know, and we're going to talk about in a minute, Bandcamp. So you've got this album on quite a few outlets, haven't you?
Well, I distributed it through CD Baby. So they distribute to Spotify, Apple Music, and iTunes. So it's on those. It's on Deezer. But they're the sort of main four that it's on. Then it's on Bandcamp. and then it's on my own website, and obviously it's on the Facebook page, and it's on Amazon. It's for sale on Amazon. It's for sale on vinyl so that's the online side.
Yes.
That I did through CD Baby.
That's fantastic. They're really good, CD Baby, aren't they?
They're brilliant. I mean, they just make it so easy. The stats that you get back from all of the partners that they work with are incredibly useful, because the demographics of where it's been played and who's buying it and who's listening to it it's just really useful information. Not necessarily for this album. It's like you do an album and it's going to break the world. It's like, you do that if you're Jeff Buckley and you've been given $1 million and you're incredible and it was the right time to make that album, and without that album the world would have been, slightly
a lesser place.
Yeah, totally. If you're a singer-songwriter who is not that, and you really, you've got something that you believe in, then CD Baby just offers a really, really, really good service. And there's others out there as well, like TuneCore, but I chose to go with CD Baby for my own reasons. They pay weekly as well, and I've been getting paid from YouTube videos, Spotify, and Deezer. Mainly Spotify and YouTube, though.
So Spotify, are you eating out on that?
I might have bought a packet of crisps.
You've made that much from Spotify that you could buy a packet of crisps.
I know.
But they are giving people awareness of you. They always go on.
I think we did touch on it before, didn't we, on Spotify, and how it's really good to sort of discover and listen. And most of my friends listen to Spotify, have it on, have the playlist, and it is a really, really good platform for kind of just that easy access to just a wealth of music. And I think that's, to be on it is really, I really like it. And I got myself a little artist blue tick straight away. Doesn't mean anything really. It's just like, okay, I'm a verified artist on Spotify.
Andy, it would mean something to your mum.
Well, exactly. She probably doesn't even know what Spotify is, to be fair. If you're listening, I'll hook you up.
But then to go from Spotify and all this digital stuff to listen costs nothing and they can flick away in an instant. I'm interested in what you did with vinyl, which is a completely different proposition, and amazingly, people actually have to part with cash to get their hands on it.
Just to tie into the Bandcamp thing, Bandcamp. So I put it on Bandcamp, and Bandcamp's completely, your platform. You decide how it looks. You decide what the prices are. You sell. They take a really, really small amount from sales. Don't think they take it. Don't quote me on this, but I don't think they take anything from digital, and they take a bit from. Anyway, it's very small. So I got the vinyl done, and then I got some like little product shots done, which I did myself. Again,
you're a graphic artist, aren't you?
I am not.
All right.
But what I did do is, whenever you get like a new album out and you see it on these like Apple Music, they've always got the vinyl on top of this kind of white sort of sheet that they use for photography. So I was like, I want that for my album. How do I get some of that? So I went to Jessup's shop, and they gave me a piece about 2 meters, and then I set my vinyl up on it, and I took some product shots myself with my iPhone. And they look great. So I did that, and then I put them on Bandcamp. And so, yeah, the vinyl it's one of them things. It's like, it's not cheap, and I've not quite covered that cost back yet.
So can you tell us how much that cost was and how many you got made up?
I paid, I think it was about maybe £1,500. So like $1,900 or something like that. And I got 300 done. And I got them done in Germany at a company called Optimal, I think it was called Optimal, who were recommended to me the best because they really listen to the music before they do the cut. They decide whether they're gonna. It's kind of forgotten it all now because I was so in the game when I was doing it. I was really geeking it up, and they would kind of say, there's a big company in Czechoslovakia who are brilliant, but my mastering engineer said, if you're going to go with anyone, pay that extra 200 quid and go with Optimal. And they sent me 5 test pressings, which were just, if you've ever sort of wanted to achieve anything in your life, for me, there's nothing else I wanted to do in my life than open my own vinyl and stick it on my record player, my Riga Planer 3, and listen to it and be like, whoa, that is just, wow. And for me, that was worth it. And the thing is with the vinyl, which is what I found over the year, because I've still got a few left, but I've sold quite a few boxes of them now. So the wall of boxes of vinyl in my bedroom, which my wife loves, is slowly going down.
I was going to say, are they under the bed? Books, CDs, and vinyl. You know?
They're at the end of my bed, just like, yeah.
So you sell them on gigs, Andy?
Gigs is where they get sold the most. So this is what I found this year. I put them in. They're in Rough Trade Records London, which was hard to get in. So I contacted them and said, you know, I'm independent and I've released an album. Can I put it in your shop, sale or return kind of style, which is the way that people would accept it in a record shop in this country. And they said, well, not really. We'd have to listen to it first kind of thing. And I was like, okay, cool. So I sent him a link to the album. And they said, yeah, brilliant, we'll stock it. So they stock a few records, and then if I sell it, when I sell them, they ask me for 2 more, and then they keep it like that. Piccadilly Records in Manchester, which is huge, been going for years, incredible vinyl shop, online and the shop in Manchester itself. I went there and spoke to them in person and showed them the vinyl, let them have a listen to it in the shop, and they said, yeah, we'll stock it for you. And they wrote a really cool review. Oh, it was brilliant. It was just, you know, if you. Like when I've got quite a lot of vinyl, and when I used to buy vinyl, you know, all the time, I'd go into these places and I'd listen to the recommendations and I would buy it. You know, I just don't buy as much as I used to do when I was younger, but, you know, that's kind of where I used to find new music. So for them to sort of review it and have it in their shop under the banner and on the website, because it's on the website, Piccadilly Records, my record's on there with the review. It's in Jumbo Records Leeds, which is huge, and in Rough Trade in London. All of which I did completely independently. I didn't need a distributor. I didn't need anyone to do that. I just contacted the record shop. They were absolutely brilliant. They reviewed the album and they put it in the shops. Amazing. Okay, I'm not going to get in HMV in this country, but that's fine by me. I'm in the independent ones, the ones that I, as a music lover, would care about anyway.
So would it be fair to say you've sold about 100 albums then?
I think I've probably sold a little bit more, maybe like 140, something like that.
Okay, so you're almost clawing back your investment.
Yeah, it's coming back, but for me, I kind of sort of said I was going to really push it and sell it in a year, but then it's like, well, I'm not really worried about that because the albums, like going back to what we said, the albums sell at the gigs, like more than anything. It's crazy. Like, you know, I'll do a gig and I'll have my vinyl on a little stand and people just want to buy it. And I'm not selling them, you know, really expensive. I'm selling my vinyl at gigs for you know, £10, which is absolutely, you know, fair enough. I think it's a good price for a well put together album.
Did you get t-shirts or anything made up as well?
I didn't get t-shirts. I was gonna do that, but I didn't because I'd probably spent loads on the vinyl. But I did get some risograph prints, which is like it's almost like a digital screen print with a few different colours of the album cover. And they're just absolutely beautiful. I got this guy to print them, and they're just amazing. They're just a really nice piece of art. And lots of people that at the gigs have taken them and framed them and have them on the wall because the guy who did my album cover, John Owen, the graphic artist, it's just beautiful. So people that was really nice because I got the vinyl on the reverse board. So when you touched it, you could feel the texture was different. The artwork was beautiful. I'd spent a little bit extra on the actual physical vinyl itself so that I knew that it was going to be exactly the way that it was supposed to be in the studio. And all these things together, you know, it's like, I think I was a bit obsessed at the beginning about how, like, I wanted to sell all the vinyl in the year. But really, it's like, wherever I go now, whatever gig I do, I take a few vinyl with me. And it's such a unique selling point of what I do now that people are like, oh, wow. And just to know that, because I sold, like, randomly, I sold loads of records to guys in Germany. Like, in this, like, month period. I don't know whether some listeners had listened to it on Spotify in Berlin, or I sold loads of records to guys, and I was going down to the post office and posting these records. And I bought a big pack of vinyl envelopes. And I'd put them in, I'd stamp them, I'd write a little message, and I'd throw them in like a free print or a free CD or something like that. And so just to know that in somebody's record collection, my record's in there, it's worth more money, any money. It hasn't got a monetary value for me because I know how I feel about my records, the ones I've got that I've been so lucky to have purchased, that I could just pull them out when I'm in that mood, put them on the deck and listen to it, then those guys in Germany, I mean, hats off. I'm so chuffed.
Actually, for anyone who hasn't seen Andy's artwork, you should check it out. It is absolutely fantastic. So, just to say, you are listening to Jed Brockey of GMI, the Guitar Music Institute, and I'm in conversation with Andy Squires, talking about his album, the creation of it, the marketing of it, and getting it out there. A couple of things I wanted to ask you, Andy. First thing was, what has been the most successful piece of marketing you've done? And the other one was, what was the least successful?
Okay, so, I think submithub.com. Just that persistence with that, because I got a few knockbacks straight away. If you pay, because you get free credits on it, and they don't have to get back to you at all. Whereas if you pay, they have to get back to you within 48 hours, which is brilliant. Because a lot of the guys were like, yeah, not really my thing. Thanks for getting in contact. Good luck. Brilliant. Not really their thing. That's really good. But the ones that did were absolutely, they shot up my awareness, into the sort of 200,000 mark, which for me was just like, whoa, that's crazy. So that for me was just brilliant. Really, really good. That with, I guess, approaching independent music bloggers and sending them in a copy of the album, which I did, and I sent them, I said, what would you like? Would you like a vinyl or would you like a CD? And they were like, whoa, I'd like a vinyl. And I was like, well, cool. That's worth a vinyl for me. That's great, because when I got the vinyl, I got an extra 23. They've randomly shipped 23 extras. So I was like, sweet, I'll just use those 23 just to sort of, give out, basically. So, that was probably the best thing I did. Set up my website. Yeah, great. And the Facebook thing was brilliant as well, because I was able to sort of channel in a lot of traffic into the places where they could either listen to the music or buy it, and if they didn't buy it, then it was like not a bad thing, because they might have listened to it, which is also, again, absolutely fine. That and gigging. So if you've got an album coming out or you're thinking about doing it, gig the heck out of it, because gigging, if you've got the product there and somebody's seen you and they like you, they'll buy it there and then. And it's honestly, it's crazy. I did a gig, I think it was maybe a month and a half ago. I supported a guy called Josh Rouse, who's big artist. Sold out gig, completely seated. I was the warm-up act, and I played to a full audience. Everybody was sitting down when I played, and I sold loads of vinyl at that gig. And they paid to see this other guy, and I came on the bill quite late, maybe a week before. And I sold vinyl. I couldn't believe it.
Did you have enough vinyl for the amount of people who wanted it?
Yeah, no, I always take enough with me everywhere I go, just in case. Take more. Take. And the thing is with the CDs as well is that another thing to add to that is when I've done gigs, I've sold the CDs, but when I've sort of met people, I've given the CDs away. My CDs are like, I view the CDs as business cards. And the vinyl, I have to sell the vinyl because it costs me so much money. So that was probably the best thing that I did. Submit Hub, getting it out there to sort of hundreds of thousands of people. If you go on YouTube, you've got these indie folk radio. That was one that picked me up. There's another guy called Alex Rain Music, I think he's called, and he's like, he's the godfather, that guy. If you get played by him, he's got like over 1 million subscribers.
Wow.
But exposure, amazing. So that would be a really good thing if you're doing it. Just keep pushing at these people, because they listen to it, they get back to you, it costs you £1. It's money well spent, I think.
And what do you think people should stay away from?
The only thing to stay away from really is your own negativity towards not doing it or why you're doing it. Because like I've released an album and it's completely sort of changed my life, really. Because now I'm looking at another album now. I'm booking into the studio sort of March, April time, because I've like creativity is flowing out of me now, because I've achieved something that I never thought I could achieve. And I view this particular project, TercelVoice, I want to do a 3-album series with it and then see what happens. The first one was the acoustic, was the stripped back. This is me sort of deciding that I'm going to do this and being as honest and raw as possible, which is what I did on the record. Unapologetically a melancholy record was one of the things that someone said. brilliant, amazing. Another thing that was said in a review was, if you spend your days sat in a catatonic state daydreaming to Bon Iver's For Emma Forever Ago, then here's another bleakly beautiful album for you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that review. It's just, if you're looking for party tunes or pick me up, then this is not the place to be. Which was great. And then another one was, as we approach the end of this collection, Good Men We're Saved ambles in like a lost, badly drawn boy and Guy Garvey duet from some cold, dusty room in Manchester early in their careers. Brilliant. Thank you. So if you're thinking of doing it, like this was the thing, Jed. It was like, if I was listening to this podcast and, you know, I was like, I was thinking about doing an album, like inside me, I'd want to hear someone go, just do it. Like literally just do it, because you can do it on your computer. You don't have to go to a studio, and you don't have to like wait for someone's permission to do anything. So I think that for me, it was the biggest thing, was that I'd said to myself, you've got the permission to release an album. You know, who do you think you are? Releasing an album was one shoulder on Spotify, you at your age, and then the other side was like, what the heck? Let's do it. And because I've actually done it, I don't really care whether it reaches millions of people, because the few comments that I've had, personal comments, and on my website from people who said this music is beautiful. You know, you've really, thank you. Those limited comments are just
worth their weight in gold. Yeah, I'm
so grateful, because, you know, that's just lovely. And you know, if that review had hit the sort of, you know, major sort of music publications in Britain, if it had had a huge campaign, then yeah, I'm sure that it would have had a massive kind of, you know, impact, and that people would have bought the album and et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, it didn't, and there's loads of really amazing music out there. That isn't signed or anything. You know, sort of one of the Tom Robinson mentioned one of my tracks on BBC Six Music and played a little segment of Bad to the Bone, which is my first track on the album. And I was like, oh, that's just awesome. Do you know what I mean? That's just really cool. But yeah, it didn't mean more to me than what I've heard from gigs and doing, you know, like in people who've bought my album and been like, man, this has really helped me or something. You know, like music does that for me. And it's like, now's the time really to sort of get it out there, because there's so much music out there now that if you didn't do it, then
you'd look back and regret not doing it.
Well, seriously, you will. And you know, I think that goes for anything. Like, I think we're our worst sort of enemies in terms of, oh, well, I shouldn't be doing a podcast because who wants to hear what I've got to say? And it's like, well, you know, you've got a voice, you've got opinions. Just do it.
And we have the opportunity. Now, I want to ask you, were you tempted to try, have you seen these paid radio promotion things? Have you seen any of those? And were you tempted, if you have seen them? You know, they'll get you to 1,500 internet radio stations.
Yeah, to be honest, I think if you're going to pay for something, you want to make sure that it's not more than £1. No.
Well, it's pretty hard to follow since you had such success with that thing for £1.
Yeah. It just makes total sense that if you've done something that's, you know, of worth, like if I don't know if you think it or not, I don't know. I mean, I think it has. Then someone who, the right person to listen to it, will pick it up and be like, yeah, I'll play that. That's really good. And like, I don't think, you know, for radio and stuff in this, you know, in the UK, you don't really need to do that, because if you've got a huge production company behind you and stuff like that, then yeah, they're going to push it into the right places, obviously, which makes sense to do. But if you've not got that kind of sort of backing, then just go through BBC Introducing, because that's what that's for. And it's, you know, you've got the backing of the British Broadcasting Corporation, which is huge, worldwide, loads of clout about it, and they've been nothing but amazing to me this year. They've played me maybe 9 times this year. They've played every single track off my album at least once. So that's my 9-track album. They've had me in for a session. I've just done a Christmas crooning session with them for Children in Need last Friday, which is going out this Saturday, and it's also getting played on Christmas Day.
I'm glad I'm interviewing you now, because next week, maybe not. Oh, yes. That is amazing. But you know what really shines through more than anything, Andy, is your enthusiasm for what you're doing and your determination to get it done. And that's probably the difference.
I guess if you are thinking about putting a track together, the best thing you can do is to pick up a guitar and make yourself work that through and work it until you're happy with it. And then if you feel like it's any good, then if you think about how much money you spend in a month on different things like drinks, different things, or partying or going out and having a few drinks, the amount of money that costs, if you think, well, I'm going to spend £200 on this particular track, because if I don't record it, it'll get lost forever. And then music's lost a track. And maybe it was good, maybe it wasn't, but it doesn't matter. Like, I was really inspired by a guy called Daniel Johnson, who worked in McDonald's somewhere in America and gave out free tapes. And he gave out a different tape every week. And he's absolutely incredible. His music is beautiful. It's so beautiful. And, if you make money from music, then absolutely, wow, you are, you double bonusing, because you were doing something you love, and you're giving it your all from your soul, hopefully, and, you're making some money. Good for you. If you're making money, brilliant. Like I've been doing this year, I started doing it like a covers gigs, paid covers gigs, and I was like, I don't play covers. Now I can do an hour and a half set of covers of my own stuff. And at those gigs, I've sold loads of my own albums. So, like, I used to sort of be a bit like, oh, I'm not doing covers gigs. And now I'm like, wow, I get paid to sort of practice for an hour and a half. And I really go for it, and it's brilliant.
So, Andy, this may be a little bit too capitalistic and grubby around the money, but do you have a balance sheet in terms of how much you've spent and how much you've brought in? Even on a vague level, have you brought in anything near as much as you've actually spent on the project?
I think, to be totally honest, the money that I spent on the studio, I've written off.
Okay.
Because I'm not interested in that money. That was between me and the studio, that money. I never expected to recoup it. I never expected to even get to the end of an album. I just wanted to record some music, and I was willing to pay for that experience. And that, for me, was done. The money that I got from, the money that I got for the album, a substantial amount that I wanted to recoup. And I'm continuing to recoup that. Probably about half of it or something like that I've recouped back now from actually just physical sales. People listening to the music, handing over vinyl, getting some money, putting it in a pot, counting it up. And that's basically the extent of my books when it comes to that. All the money that I get from a little bits of distribution stuff that comes through CD Baby just gets held in a PayPal account, and I just keep it there just because I want to see what happens over a year, which is brilliant. But I'm not into that. I'm not, no way am I in those kind of like selling out gigs.
I was thinking more from the point of putting the money towards the next album, in a sense.
Well, this is it, exactly. So the money that's been recouped, I'm hoping that once you put that money in, if I can recoup that money and then put that money straight back into the project again, then that is exactly what I'll do. I won't be like, I'm going to be, buying myself this. I'll literally go and do another album, because I want to do an acoustic album. The next one's going to be a little bit more rock, and then the third one's going to be electronic. And that's the series that TercelVoice will give to the world, because I worked on projects before that. I did the acoustic stuff that were more rock, and then I actually did an electronic album about 4 years ago that I never did anything with. I've got experience in all those genres, and I'm going to tie them all together in this project. So yeah, I'll put it straight back into another studio session, basically.
So that's quite interesting. Do you think you might lose some fans that like each of the styles?
No, I don't think so, really, because there's already tracks on the first album that are leaning towards that kind of full band sound. There's 2 tracks on there that are full band with guitars wailing and all this kind of stuff. It's so intimate and so personal, my sound anyway, that it'll come through, I think, in anything, because when I set out the project, I set out to do the most honest kind of thing I could ever do. So I would never sort of compromise that. In terms of, it wouldn't matter really, because I think that would shine through whatever I was doing, My penultimate question is, have you found which countries like you the most? Germany. I've got some hot fans in Germany.
Fantastic.
Chile.
It's amazing, isn't it? Isn't the world amazing now?
It's crazy. I like to think that somebody
up a mountain
is listening to my music in Chile is just mind-bending. It's incredible, Yeah, like England's been good as well. England's been really good. Lots in London. Like really weird places as well, like Hornsey, or like just strange places that pop up that I'm like, wow, some guys or girls listening to that, and that's pretty cool. But yeah, like you get a monthly stat report from Spotify, and it's just really interesting. And it's like again, Jed, it's if I sort of just expected them then to buy my stuff, it would just be a bit like, oh, I don't know. The fact that they're just listening to it is enough for me. If I do sell stuff, then I'm really happy about that. You know, that's great.
Every musician feels that. It's not so much people buying your records. You want to think that they actually listen to your music.
Well, that's it, exactly. And I do think about that side of it a lot, and I'm not completely naive in that. You know, I might sound a bit kind of, I don't really care. I'm just want to do it for the art and stuff like that. You know, because I've looked into the marketing strategies, I've looked into the Facebook ads, and I've looked into online blogs and different things, and I've had, you know, mild success with my little sort of fishing that I'm doing out in the net. It's some things are striking and it's really good. I also am completely aware that, you know, I've done an album and that I'm going to do another album. And then I'm going to build on that and do another album. And like a lot of people that I really, really respect in music, I've heard of them on the third album. And I'm like, hang on, what was the first album? Oh, go back and listen. And so I understand that kind of journey of music, and I like that. You know, a friend of mine is in a world music band called Kafire, and they're amazing. And they released an album, I think it was 3 years ago, or maybe, coming up to 3 years ago now. And they've just signed with a massive distribution company, publishing deal. Like, big. Like, these are people who publish Bowie and people like that. It's huge. And it took them 3 years of solid work, gigging. But the fact that they had an album out really, really helped them, because they had something to sell, they had something to market, and they were able to build on that album. And now they've got a second album ready to go. And hey, it's all just slotting into place. It would not have happened without the album or a single or anything. You need something to sort of build on. If it happens overnight, wow, you've like pat on the back, that's amazing. Like crack the champers, you've nailed it. But it's not for everybody else. It's putting it out and having a consistency. Thinking, I was really into that band last year. What are they doing? Oh, well, there's Sony. I'm into this band now. But the ones that you really, really, really like, you will wait a few years for the next album, because they touched you in, you know, they really did on a deep level. And if they did, you'll wait for the next album. And that's how it builds. And it's, you know, it does. You've got to play the long game in this, I think. And that's how I'm looking at it. Just to end on, Andy, when are you going to start the recording process on the second album? March. Yeah. Have you already got that booked? Yeah, I've booked it. Yeah, I've booked 3 days, and they're going to be my initial starting point for a completely fresh project. And as I walk in the studio doors, I'm going to use the same studio because I just fell in love with it. I'm not the same person anymore because I've done the album, so I'll have a little bit more freedom to do different things now, because of that album, because of that whole process of, what's my artwork going to be? Or, oh my God, I've got to come up with a name for this project. Or, what's this track called? To the, shall I get it pressed in Germany? Or shall I go really cheap? And it's just, you do things and you look back and you think, wow, I'm so glad I did that, because I had the guts to do it, and I believed in myself enough to do it. And not in a crazy, stupid way. You know, like, this is like a... What did someone say to me? Like, I think someone said something to it. It really affected me. They were like, is this like a vanity project? And I was like, no. Like, this is music, man. This is nothing to do with me or my ego. This is music that's come through me and needs to be released out. And that's pretty much the only stamp I've got on it, is that I just said, okay, let's go to the studio. The rest of it was out of my hands. And it wasn't there's no way that I could have the right to say no to it, because that's how I feel about music. If music comes to you, then let it happen, or, you know, you've got no right to stop it, I think. It's been absolutely brilliant, as always, talking with you, Andy, and thank you so much for sharing with the listeners. You know, a lot of people learn things, but they hold them in, but you haven't done that. You've told people the things that have worked for you, and I know there are many songwriters that listen to this podcast, and they're going to love the information you've given, and just to hear that I'm sure there'll be a lot of similarities, and because singer-songwriting, it can be kind of a lonely game, and there's so many people out there, just so many singer-songwriters, and I think you've had over 300,000 listeners to your music. That is amazing, just from the initial, I want to record some tracks. Yeah, it's incredible, and like I said a minute ago, it's just now you're in a different place, because I was in a place last year where I didn't know anything about having an album out, but now I know a little bit more about having an album out. And so that in itself is just, that information for your mind is absolutely incredible, just to do it and succeed in things and fail at things. Equally, you're going to learn from both of those experiences. I'm going to learn more from things that didn't work than things that did work. And just to have it out there, bubbling away, discoverable, I think is the best thing, is because people are looking for music, and if people are looking for that particular type of music, then they might discover my music and they might like it, and that's really cool. That's brilliant. I'm in the big sea of music. I've jumped into the big sea of music. I'm not stood on the side looking and going, oh, I fancy a dip. I'm in there. You know, it's great. I'm in there flowing around, and I'll put some more stuff in there next year, and I'll just keep doing that now. And I think that's what the main thing I've learned. You know, yeah, okay, if money comes, brilliant, then rock and roll. You know, that's awesome. But the main thing for me is meaning, and the meaning that I've got from actually doing it is worth more money to me than anything, because I really, really feel that on a deep level. And if you're a singer-songwriter and you've got a voice and a song has come to you, then you've got an obligation, I believe, to record it and put it out there, because you've no idea that I might hear that and it might save my life, that particular music. It might save my life in some way, and you've got no obligation to keep it to yourself. You have to pass it on, and that's the nature of music, and that's why it's so beautiful, and just absolutely chuffed to be talking to you again, Jed, about, you know, this a year later, after having all the experiences of gigging and putting it out there and trying to get it together and thinking, oh, I'm going to be a music marketer myself, and oh, I'm an artist. Oh, I'm just the artist. I don't know anything about music promotions. But then it's like, well, I'm going to make a video and just see what happens. It's just like, it's a really exciting game. It's beautiful and amazing, and there's too much blooming emphasis on, I'm going to get a deal, I'm going to be huge. It's like, no, you're not. If you do, wow, then you're really lucky, and that's brilliant. But again, it's all to do with meaning. If you're doing it, you will get so much meaning out of it. Your life will be happier, and you'll be smiling on the inside because you took the plunge and you did it, and you're in there with everyone else, and that's brilliant. You know, that's what I've learned the most, more than this, that, the other. It's like, bring it on.
Andy, thanks for your time, and thanks for sharing that with us.
Totally welcome, Jed. It's been awesome speaking to you again. Yeah, love you, man.
Well, that's another podcast finished. I hope you found it really interesting. Andy Squires is quite an individual, talented not just in music, but he obviously has a great idea how to market his music, and that really comes through loud and clear. And his enthusiasm for art and music and getting things done really shines through. I hope you found that interesting, and if you are a musician of whatever type, that you're now considering doing some of the things that he's done if you haven't heard of them, and it'd be great to hear your comments on how you get on. Thanks so much for your company. Please share and tell everyone about the GMI Guitar Music Institute podcast. It would be really appreciated. Until next time, from me, Jed Brocky, bye for now.